I got a call from one of the people watching, and just wondering if you also coach people, says Richard. Hugaboom.
I do. I don't do it an awful lot. What I do when I coach people with humor is I find their humor voice. It's about what you find funny, what they find funny. And then my wife is a physicist. She sees things in processes and procedures. She's taken things I do organically and helped condense it into things that I can then show other people how they can use humor. I mean, for instance, I was talking to this guy, I was coaching this young man, had a story about scuba diving, and he had a big giant sign up from Australia, and it said, rule number 1 was you have to be certified. Rule number 2 was swim with a buddy. Rule number 3 was tell somebody where you're going. And rule number 4 was never ascend without exhaling or you'll die. And I told him any rule that ends with or you'll die should probably be rule number 1. And so simple change improved that story 100%. And he uses it as a callback throughout his program when he talks about priorities. So a lot of it is just taking the things that people get a giggle on and then really finding the humor and making it really funny, wringing it out.
You said in one of your talks that humor is just, I'm not going to phrase it. Could you describe what humor is? Putting things together that aren't, I don't want to take the word.
Humor is just the combining of ideas that aren't normally associated together. And sometimes the more extreme they are, the funnier they are. I mean, you'd written me a note about story you're using and there was candy involved and it was and M&Ms or something. I said, no, Skittles. Skittles is a funnier word that we can make little changes. Again, it's that difference between a documentary and a feature film. The documentary is what happened. The feature film is how we tell that story to connect with our audiences. And that conversion is really where the magic happens. It has to be the truth. It has to be, I can't, if I got up and said, well, I teleported myself yesterday, the audience, well, most of them probably wouldn't believe it, but it has to we have to get just maybe bigger, a little bit bigger in what's going on. Exactly. That's where the real funny is.
So I see when you speak in all the videos that I've seen and you live twice in Ireland and in Indonesia, you giggle all the time, still at your own stuff. And you have to be an exceptional Emmy-winning actor to do that, or you're literally still enjoying telling that story.
Well, Lou Heckler said, we don't tell and retell, we live and relive. And so for me, that's what I'm doing. And I've had several people say, Tim, you can't laugh at your own material. Well, I'm remembering what happened. I'm reliving that moment. And when I'm there, the story is stronger by reliving it and not just retelling it. And so I know I've had several people ask, and it's not something I'm going to stop. Now, I don't get to the point where I'm uncontrollable laughter, but I don't crack myself up like that. But usually it's been how much fun I remember, or the other person enjoying the laugh so much. That's where it comes from.
Well, if it's contagious, theoretically, if you are present in the room and seeing them laughing, it makes sense that you're going to enjoy it just as much as they're enjoying it, right?
We feed off that. Comedians especially feed off. You go to a comedy club, the chairs are right up against the stage. They want them as close as they can, as packed together as they can, and not all spread out. There's a science to it, really.
Oh, I didn't know that. So I have an idea, and I don't see a lot of people doing it or saying it, and I don't know if it's like silly, but if we're not being interactive, like asking, well, you know what the word interactive means. If we're not being highly interactive, like I still see a lot of dudes your age, your color of skin, using a lot of PowerPoints and doing monologuing. And when I first came to the industry, I was like, how the hell does that sell? Like, what's going on here? And I thought, what if we advertise them more as like workshops? Because what I've seen you do is it's very engaging. Like they walk away with practical things. That's not like a keynote in the way that I've learned at a younger age. So how would you describe like 2000 workshop?
So Mark Scherenbrock will never use PowerPoint. He's one of the greatest storytellers that we have living today.
Oh,
I got dragged into using it because I was in different research. You see, our audiences all learn differently, and
yeah.
whatever I can do to facilitate that, I'm going to do. And if some of them need that, then I'll do it. And it's
Yeah.
like if you're a $5,000 speaker, you need $10,000 slides. If you looked at what I used, it was 2 or 3 steps above everybody else that I could find. I'm always looking. It's not just going to be PowerPoint. It's going to be something where people goes, that's slick. I wonder how he did that.
Oh, okay.
So, and you're right, though. There was a time when it was a white male standing behind a podium that talked and people listened. You know, these days are so far gone
Yeah.
that now, and I appreciate that. Now it's better to involve everybody in it. But what I tell you is that there's no one way to do a keynote.
No.
There's no difference between workshops and keynotes, in my opinion, except depth and duration.
Okay.
And so in a keynote, I'm supposed to inspire somebody, plant the seeds, entertain them, and get them open to the rest of the conference when I open. When I close, I'll take what happened, help package it, make it funny. And I want to, the people that hire me want that audience to go, I can't wait to come back next year. This is what we're going to do. PowerPoint, if you have too many slides, it's a waste. You know, here's the #1 rule of comedy in a keynote. If it doesn't add to a program, it subtracts from the program. So I'm continuously looking at how I present. I look at my stage skills. It's not something like you go, well, that one's done. I always am working on my material and on being better and better.
Oh, really? So can people see, or can you see, like, well, maybe you could tell me the beginning story. I said it was like 20 years ago when you gave that story at an NSA conference and your career took off. Was it that? And are you like 1,000? Are you much better now at telling that story, or when it was fresh, was it better? Or can we use the same story for 20 years? Can I do that?
I think that's a really good point. Now that story, I don't use it as much as I used to. About 6 or 7 years ago, I really wasn't using it as much as I used to, because as programs got shorter, that story took up too much real estate for the audience. It makes a point about making assumptions about people, about inclusion. It talks about, you know, that we prejudge people. There's a lot of great points there. But if a company's hiring me to talk about leadership, I'm going to be talking more about how the laughing leader can help inspire their troops to be able to get out there and do good things. So that story also, if you remember, I had a paper ticket. Well, you know, how long has it been since we had paper tickets? Everybody, you know, the bottom line with it is, when I use it, I have to set it up better. And I also have to debrief it better.
Yeah.
But the problem is, every story has a shelf life. I watched a guy talking the other day about, he was talking to salespeople, and he was talking about that the knob broke on their television, and so he became the remote controller. And everybody under 40 went, "What's a knob?" You know, it's out of date. We research our audiences at age groups, education. I learn as much as I can about them so I can tailor my program to fit where it will fit the best.
And are you able to, I feel like you have very clean humor, you have very like international humor. And if you go to Germany, I think they'll appreciate your observational humor style. The Americans, we appreciate your like knee slapping style. I feel like you do a little like naughtier humor perhaps. So I feel like you do a lot of different humors. And did you actually plan to use like almost all 9 of the humor types? Or is that just you and you're very diverse in that way? Or do you have a favorite?
The more that I was on stage, the more I read. When we get evaluations, we need to read them for trends. And if a bunch of people say I talk too fast, then I'm talking too fast.
Oh,
If somebody tells me there weren't enough elevators in case of a fire, I'll probably disregard that. But I look for the trends in there. And if other people say they don't understand something about a story, then it's time to either upgrade it or replace it.
okay.
I'm always picking up new material and rebuilding and trying to see how they fit into different programs. Here's the thing, you can't coast. If you remember your high school physics, the only time you coast is when you're going downhill and there's no resistance. We always need to be getting better and better with what we do. our
Hmm.
stage skills.
So you have not plateaued. It's the same story that I've seen, or a lot of us know you for, but you're doing stuff behind stage that we're not noticing. And that's why you've never died out. Let's be honest. If you would have used the same story and never improved, you would have just been old white dude.
Patricia Fripp is one of my, she's one of the best in the world here in the US. Patricia Fripp, when I came off stage right after that program or it launched my career, she said, "Tim, you're going to be flavor of the month." And then after that, what are you going to do? And it sustained me. That I realized I did not ever, and what she didn't mean it negatively. She just meant if you don't work at this, you're going to lose momentum. And so I've worked really hard. Every Monday, I look at trends in the industry. I look what my friends are, where they're being booked. I look at the terms that are people are buying. I really try to learn about that and try to adapt to it. We've got massive changes on my website coming. We should always be getting more video, but no coasting for me. That's for sure.
No coasting. So there's an expression that I heard they say, we are marketers who sometimes get to speak. Would you agree that that's
I agree. People that you can't just wait for the phone to ring. When you get busy, that's the time to market. That's when your confidence level is at its highest. That's when you want to be marketing and talking with people and making those calls and getting in touch with people. I think it's a misnomer when people think that you reach a level of success and then it's just all I do is raise my fees and keep moving on and moving on. So it just doesn't work like that. The minute you're done with your demo video, you need a new demo video. The minute you're done with your website, you need a new website. You need to at least be improving or working on it. It could take up to a year to finish. We should always be working to improve those.
I thought you just get famous from $1 million story and then you milk it like a beautiful.
I'll tell you something. You've seen me a couple of times. That program that I did is not my main program. That is not where when I speak, I have a program called Change the Game and a program called the Tao of Humor. And so I have a lot more stories than you've probably seen before.
There's a lot more with that.
Next time when I'm in next time I'm in Germany, wherever I'm at, I'll let you know. Come as my guest. But yeah, I'm always building new programs, building new stories.
So we have a question from Felix. If it's possible that people don't use it because there's a fear about telling jokes about other people. So I've been told and I tell people the safest way to start with humor is self-deprecating. Would you agree on that? I didn't see too much self-deprecating of yourself other than being really sweaty.
Well, the big sweaty guy is about as big self-deprecating, I think, as you can get on the plane. But I'll tell you, here's the thing. Jokes almost always have somebody as the butt of the joke.
Okay.
C.W. Metcalf said, laugh not with ridicule, but with objectivity and acceptance of self. That more than anything, it's not about putting people down. We should never use humor to diminish people. We use it to enhance. And now there's some really simple ways you can determine if you're wondering if you should tell a story on the stage. I would say if you wouldn't tell it to your 80-year-old grandmother or your 6-year-old daughter, then you shouldn't be doing it. The people in the US, at least, when they're at these conferences, are at work. They're being paid for their time, and the same rules apply as do in their offices. And so if you use inappropriate humor, that is really creating a hostile work environment in some cases. And that's why a lot of comedians have had trouble transferring into speaking, because it's a different world with different rules. That's for sure. But more than anything else, when in doubt, leave it out and make sure that you listen to your audiences. And you're right. There are stories you can get away with in Germany. I mean, you know me, I've been all over the world speaking. In Canada, as close as Canada is, words you could say on stage there, you could never really get away with in the US. We have the right of free speech here, but we have the responsibility of free speech. And I think that we never want to place our employers we have a fiduciary responsibility not to get the people that hire us in trouble by what we say on the platform.
That the 6-year-old and the grandma thing is very interesting, because what I noticed about you and what makes you my favorite. I want to grow up to be like this guy. Guys watching. One day someone's gonna say like, "Hey, that Jessica's like Tim, just a little bit taller, more hair, and bigger boobs," and that will be the day that I have my award. You do clean humor, and clean humor that doesn't hurt anyone. You know how laughter yoga was created, Tim?
I do.
Yeah. So that the art of clean humor is it's the opposite of the easy lowest hanging fruit, right?
That's
The
correct.
the crappy mean humor. So your art is exceptionally high level, and people think like, oh, it's just a funny guy, and people put down funny people that they're not professional. But I would
Mhm.
say the level of intelligence and quickness of mind and good heartedness to make clean humor is so professional, and we should not be afraid to use it at work. And I know this is your message, but give me your like your
No,
preaching. So
you're right
powerful.
on about that. I used to work for USDA Food Nutrition Service as a
Oh,
management analyst, and I
okay.
was being promoted into a new position, a new manager position. And my boss said to me, "Tim, you can't use humor the way you used to in the office all the time if you become a manager." And I said, "Why?"
Mm.
And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Why? Why can't I?" And he goes, I don't know. That's what I was told." And so he passed that on. I said,
Mm.
I consistently get the highest performance ratings. We've never had complaints from any of the state agencies that I work with. You've
Yeah.
never had a complaint from another employee. I just went around and around. I just said it's not something to hide behind. It's not like, why can't you take a joke?
Yeah.
That's why I don't like to tell jokes. Again, jokes are almost always somebody's the butt of it.
True.
Tell a
True.
funny story,
Yeah.
relate a funny occurrence.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I just think that's what's worked for me.
Yeah. If it works for you, and if it's if it's that simple, because the way I notice yours, the way I've studied and I teach humor, it's like yours is observational and relating to what we can all see. Like a 6-year-old can see it, and an 80-year-old can see it. Like, what seat do you want to sit in?
Mhm.
First class, people,
That's
come
right. First
on!
class.
Like, that's hilarious every time I'll hear it, right? Because
Uh-huh.
it relates so much to the human condition of we all want better than we are sitting in like the middle seat in the back eating Ryanair, right? So it's so possible for people to see things differently. And why do you think people are so afraid to use humor? Is it like a traumatic thing in childhood?
No,
Is it
no.
because
I think that what it is we're there. There's a growing movement now of people that are are offended very easily and very vocal about it. And the
yeah,
reason it is because in the past they were really oppressed. They were, people were told, "Can't you take a joke?" or "Can't you?" When in fact the humor was used negatively against them, no question.
okay,
And this is where the problem is now is that we don't assume the best, which is what we should be doing.
okay,
And when I think at work, when we use humor, we just need to be aware of it and be aware of what we're saying. You don't just say something because you think it's funny.
okay.
You don't, no more than your boss is up talking. There's going to be no raises, and you yell, you know, bull hockey. You're not going to do that either.
Mm,
It's all about being professional and using humor professionally, the right humor at the right time. And this is why kids get in trouble using humor in school. They don't realize yet there's a time and a place for it.
mm, hmm, hmm. Speaking about time and a place, I don't know when you got married to Sophie, but it was like, do you
8 years
want
ago.
8 years
We just
ago?
Yep. We're having our anniversary on New Year's Eve, our 8th anniversary.
Oh, you got married on New Year's Eve? That
We did.
means?
Yeah.
Whoa!
You never forget your wedding date. You know what I
Did you
mean?
do
You
that on
never forget.
purpose? It's the most romantic day of the year, and I'll never forget.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when you got married, you got 2 cats from her, 2 from you, and 2 from your mother?
My mother-in-law passed away. We got her 2 cats. So we have 6 cats right now.
And are cats funny? Now, do you get inspired by Tuxedo
I
walking
do.
around the house?
I
Do
do.
you dress yourself up?
Cats can be very funny.
Yeah.
Animals in and of themselves are funny.
Mm.
They're not self-conscious about anything, and
They lick
so
their own butt.
yeah, and
For
it's like part of your brain goes, "Wonder what's up with that." But it really is something where it helps me disconnect for a short time watching or playing with the cats or just
mm,
watching the funny things that they do.
mhm,
I really believe that it's a celebrate laughter is a celebration of life. And so our
yeah,
pets, the things that go on around us, um, I think that laughter celebration is something we should really work hard on. to connect with people. Anything we find funny.
Yeah, I just read something on LinkedIn. I was messaging all your friends on LinkedIn being like, "Hey, I know you know Tim. I know you love him, but come on over." And of course, I saw very cool people with very impressive careers and a lot of funny people. And there's this one quote of someone said like, "How can I ask yourself, how can I make this activity more funny?" Right? It's like
Mhm.
washing the dishes. Well, I could put on something funnier. I could dress backward. Like, I don't even know, like, if you ask yourself that, what would your day look like? Like,
And just
fantastic.
thinking about it is what we're really promoting here is don't look at the drudgery. Look at everyday things differently.
Yeah.
My older brother Dan was really hated bad driving, and somebody had pull in front of him and he'd yell at him. And I said, Dan, when somebody does that and you yell at them, they're not going to go, "Oh, I've offended a fellow traveler. I better go home and hone my driving skills so I no longer offend.
Yeah.
Sorry, roadmate. Perhaps we'll meet again under better circum." No, and he told me later that when they do that, that's what he thinks of now. That's what they're, and it makes him laugh, or it
Oh,
made him laugh at the time.
that's
So
lovely. Oh, it's that simple. It's just a reframing. It's just
it's a
the old
you're
Tony
sharing
Robbins NLP, right?
your perspective changes. When you change your perception, you create a different reality for
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll give you another one. I had my luggage lost. This guy in front of me is screaming at the guy behind the counter about lost luggage. And I went up and he said, my bag was lost for 2 days. And he said, "You're dealing with this rather well, and I told him, I said, I'd been in Thailand speaking, and I watched this guy that was a snake. He'd had a snake show 6 times a day, 6 days a week. And he gets bitten by a cobra at least once a week. And he
Oh.
goes, "What's your point?" And I said, "I didn't get bit by a cobra." I mean, this is bad, but I'm not, if we compare the two, I'm really ahead. And it made him laugh. They go find my bag. You
Yeah.
become memorable.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So Rich and I, we met at AIN, Applied Improv Network. And so the improvising, do
Uh-huh.
you see improvising as a very important tool for people to be able to use what's happening in the room to be able to be with the people? Or what's your opinion on improv?
Oh, of course. Improv teaches you to think on your feet better than any other activity. And it's the freedom of yes and instead
Mm.
of you're wrong. So by teaching that, it really encourages people in the leadership to not just think differently, but to try things and maybe occasionally fail. It's okay. But I
Yeah.
think the improv games we learn better by doing. It's
Yeah.
proven fact. It
Yeah.
better be fun.
Yeah.
My friend Dan Thurman teaches people to juggle, and then he'll have
Oh.
them stand side by side and juggle together.
Mm.
It's
Wow.
very interactive. There's so many things you can do like that, and there are a lot of improv games that can help at work, help
Yeah.
better skills, no question.
Now, have you ever taken a clown class, Tim?
I didn't take a clown class. At one time, I have a friend in Norfolk that is a clown. He's a professional clown, and that's one thing that never really appealed to me for some reason. I don't know why. But it never really appealed to me, and it's probably because they don't talk most of the time. That's probably it. That's probably the main thing.
Oh, well, maybe if you're working with mimes, but the ones over here in Spain don't stop talking.
Victoria Labalme is the speaker here in the U.S. that studied under Marcel Marceau, the very
Okay.
famous mime.
Yeah.
And she does physical humor, I think, better than almost anybody else I know. So there's
Beautiful.
always something to learn.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Well,
always.
the expressions that you do in the body language, right? Like that's physical humor. Of course, the clown is an expert in physical humor. So I just thought, but those shoes probably wouldn't fit into your clown. Oh, listen to this, Tim. Like 4 years ago, I was taking a lot of clown classes. And I was like, I want clown shoes. So I go on Craigslist, a used platform for stuff, and I find clown shoes too small for me.
what?
I'm
So
like,
what do? You make your own, maybe. So you'd have to have special clown shoes. Is that the?
yeah, that was very depressing because I grew up always being the big girl. So I'm like that tall German girl with Birkenstocks on, and now not even freaking clown shoes fit her. That's like the highest point of my
What
failure.
What a great line to use though if you're in buying Jimmy shoes and you're going, you don't have any clown shoes, do you? I really have a hard time finding those.
Hard time finding clown shoes. Cool. We'll do like two more questions, and then I don't
Okay.
want to take up your day. So, Greg, I was He was in the same event that I
I
met
know
him.
Greg. Greg's a great guy.
You
Yeah.
know him yet? So
I
what
know Greg.
tools are you using to see what the competition is buying, and what negotiation strategies are you
Yeah,
using?
so I use Sam Richter's. He's got search engine tools. There's different search engine tools that you can purchase. I think it's called Diamond Search. Is Sam Richter's. That's what I use. But a lot of times I have 6 people I've identified as competitors,
Okay.
and I look at where they're working, what they're using for marketing language. I look at how things change along the way. I look to see who's booked a lot, who's not booked a lot. And it's really small nuances, just like what you were saying about resilience and stress. I'm going to end up using resilience and probably not even stress as much. I'm just trying to keep it short. But I think the hardest thing is we get busy and it becomes less of a priority. Every Monday, I send myself I contact myself through my website. I send a contact Tim, because sometimes the links we find probably 3 or 4 times a year, the link's broken. And you wouldn't know it.
And then you go on LinkedIn and you're like, I just got a really great review from this unknown user named TG. Wow, thanks so much. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I just think that Greg, the more that you research and find your 5 top competitors, and then find out who's hiring them, and they become they're not cold calls. Because next year you can say, well, you had Tim last year. I follow him well.
I'm way funnier than him.
Yeah, there you go. There's all kinds of things like that.
Richard wants to know, is AI helping or distracting you in your program creation?
Right now in image creation for PowerPoint, use AI. I use AI in doing research for customers. Every time I call a customer, I'll use AI. As I develop programs, I found that you have a hard time realizing when it's lying to you. It's like you'll get 8 really solid bits of information and 2 that aren't. You have to choose which one it is. AI is a shortcut for me in a lot of ways, in things like program descriptions, where somebody says I need a 150-word program description or 100-word bio for leadership. I can put that into Chat GPT and it's done like that instead of rewriting it. I use AI for research more, and I'll just say what trends in this particular industry, what's going on, what are the trends, and it helps me do market research. So when I talk to a client, I know what's going on with them. I just got off the phone with one just before this podcast and read that they had just opened up 2 new schools and their growth has increased by like 400%. I think they can afford my fee.
Nice. Okay. So the thing that I started off first, which was really kind of my thought, because I talked to David Avron last week, and he was saying,
David's a good guy.
We spoke twice at the PSAs that I was going to, and he's like a real straight shooter. And he's saying, you know what? Getting the gig is the business. It's like not speaking on stage. Lots of us speak well on stage. Half of my Toastmasters friends speak as well as me. It's not the point. It's what value do you bring to the client? And possibly that the motivational speaker gigs are smaller at an event, whereas you could have 20 expert speakers on AI, on leadership, on negotiation, but there's only one really funny keynote guy. Do you see that as a problem, or because you've nailed that whole market, you're not worried about that? Or are you going to shift a little bit more to expert speaker?
Right now there are so many more people getting into business. It's becoming more and more competitive, and there are people coming into business with a lot of money for websites and sales development that don't have the platform skills. I saw somebody offering a coaching class for sale on Facebook, and it said they had over 100 programs under their belt. I wanted to say, I have 3,000. Call me when 100 is not enough to be teaching other speakers. But anyway, I think that what we have to do is follow. We've got to follow where people are buying. I'll even talk with my friends in bureaus to find out what people are searching for. Right now, humor is being sold in resilience to open or close. I rarely get hired to do an evening's entertainment. I didn't do that a lot before, but the after dinner speaker slot has been hit probably the hardest of all. And when I talk to clients, I tell them you have a dial, humor to content. Tell me where that dial is, which way it is. and then I'll deliver that. But it's what people are buying, not we're selling. And this is, David's right about that. As the industry changes, we've got to find what people are buying and stay on top of that.
I'm tired. It's a lot of work. I thought you just had this natural talent and you just shine, but you do a lot of work to stay at the very top. So it's not what we all dream it is, to be this motivational speaker that just has a great story and goes at this is
the phone never stops ringing. David Averin used to do Vistage training. They worked him a lot. Yeah. I mean, he paid his dues. Mark Sanborn, Career Tracks, all of these folks, the more speaking you're doing, the better you're going to get. This is how you get better and better. And it's sometimes if you have to do a freebie here and there, do it, but get mailing lists. Yeah. Speakers speak. The more you speak, the better you're going to get. And
they always tell us, like, don't speak for free. And I'm like, where the hell would I be if I hadn't spoke for free? I would literally be nowhere. So I don't know if that changes once you get booked more, but
I get asked all the time, Jessica, to speak for free, but you can get something. I'll say, can I write an article for your newsletter? Okay. I have 5 articles on leadership. Can I get a mailing list of the attendees that I can send them information on my programs? Do you belong to a professional organization that is nationwide that you can recommend me for now that you've seen me? Will you do a video testimonial for me that I can use in my marketing? Do it for free. Milk it for all it's worth.
Okay. All of those. So I spend all this money. I go to Dubai and I go to Nigeria, and I'm like on the big stage. This is like big for me, 300 people in the audience, and I still don't get the video from it.
How come?
I'm like, because they didn't pay the photographers, the videographers, and it was an oral agreement that they're not keeping with me in Dubai. And I'm like, it was just so frustrating because you do these things for free, and then the other side is like, well, you should be lucky that we had you. And that's the beginning people's.
So when I do different programs, Ford Sakes taught me that you bring one of those cards, those little SDR cards that goes in the camera. They can actually record it while it's going on and give it to you right at that time. I'll give them a $50 gift certificate and a hard drive and a pre-addressed stamp mailer and say, here's $50. If you'll put that in here and stick it in, then I'll, it's already activated. I give them the money, and then I've gotten them sometimes weeks later, but they feel guilty. You have to facilitate it as best you can. I think the SCI card, if that's the right initials for it, they can put it right in the camera. There's usually 2 or 3 slots. Yeah. Make it a part of your contract, because in the contract, if they don't deliver, that's a problem too. The video footage is critical,
right?
And and the shots over your shoulder of the group when you're speaking, things like that are gold.
Best. I had one guy on stage, and he got me like 300 people in Dubai, the best gig I've ever had, and they didn't send me any images. And now they're mad at me because I'm asking for them 9 months later, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sad.
Everybody's had it happen, Jessica.
Yeah.
I've paid money before and gotten horrible results. I've gotten terrible video and terrible. Yeah, it's a part of the business.
It's a part of the business, and it's a good business because it's fun. And let's have fun at this thing called life, right?
I love it.
You've had Richard. We'll use this as the final thing. What an awesome talk. Thanks for you. Hugs and kisses. Ooh, hugs and kisses from both. He's so cute. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to keep following you. When you're in Europe, it'd be great. We're actually, if only you were a girl, because we're doing a nice event with Louisa. She won the World Championship of Toastmasters this year.
Outstanding. I watched it. Outstanding.
Right? Yeah. And so from a wheelchair, she exemplified storytelling, reliving it, humor. She said, did you remember that part? She said, I was dead for 7 minutes. Best sleep of my life. Right? So
she really did well. I don't normally watch those over and over, but I watched her several times. And Toastmasters taught me. I belonged Toastmasters for years and years. It taught me better than anything else. If you get 59 minutes, you speak 59 minutes, not 60, not 58.
Exactly.
All kinds of great things.
Yeah. So the first time I actually was on a keynote stage with you in Chicago, Mister, and about 4 years ago. I couldn't smell you, touch you, or take advantage of that. But I thought, you know what? If I can be on a virtual keynote stage with you one day, I will. I would be honored to.
I'd look forward to that myself.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Great. Thank you so much for your time. We had a lot of GSSers, Global Speakers Summit people with us, and we hope to see you in 2 years in Australia.
I'll see you soon, everybody. Thanks so much, Jessica.
Take care.